Hi there, everybody. My name is John Richardson, and I serve as the town's Community Resilience Officer. Since you found our video, then I'm guessing you may know that we're working on the town's first climate action plan. After watching this, I hope you'll take our survey about the project. There's a link at the end. It's really important to us that we hear from as many members of our community as possible, so I'm also hoping that you'll share this information with people that you know. Okay, so why does all this matter? Yes, the Earth is warming, so isn't climate change more of a global problem? Well, it is, and it's also a local one. We know that our climate in North Carolina is already changing. In fact, we have data that tell us we're more at risk for extreme weather, which causes things like drought, severe storms, and flooding in our area. So in addition to reducing the energy we use for our buildings and transportation, we must also become more resilient. For the town, being resilient is about preparing to bounce back quickly from sudden disruptions like storms. It's also about bouncing forward so that we're stronger in the future. The more we and other cities reduce our use of carbon-based energy, like coal, natural gas, and gasoline, the easier it will be for future generations who live here. So what are the activities that produce the most carbon emissions in Chapel Hill? Well, we calculate that most of our emissions as a community come from the energy used by our buildings, about 60%. Cars, trucks, and other forms of transportation are the second largest source of emissions, representing about 35%. The smallest source of emissions comes from landfill waste and the energy it takes to process our wastewater and produce clean drinking water. As I mentioned a minute ago, resiliency is also critically important. Our original goal was to complete the draft plan and have the council consider its adoption in June of this year. This timeline may need to be adjusted depending on how things go with the coronavirus. Either way, we're marching ahead to try and get your input, even if we can't meet face to face right now. The basic goal of the plan is to find the top actions that we can take over the next 5 years. After we complete this work, we want to start the process over and do another plan for the 5 years after that. These actions are not just things the town government can do. In fact, we need actions that can be taken by our entire community. That's the only way we're going to make a real difference. It's also very important to us that the actions are equitable and fair. To us, this means that everyone benefits from the solutions and no one takes on more of the burden or gets left out. So what's the town doing to address climate change? Well, in 2006, we were one of the first communities in North Carolina to pledge a carbon reduction goal for town operations. And today, despite doubling our building size and growing our fleet, we're producing 6% fewer carbon emissions than we did in 2005. And that's a good thing. More recently, the Council also pledged to do our part to meet the Paris Agreement. This is a commitment to reduce our carbon emissions by 28% for the year 2025. And like Orange County and other communities around the country, Chapel Hill has also pledged to be a 100% clean energy community by 2050. So what are some of the ways that the town is working towards these goals? Well, for starters, we have a green building ordinance which says that new town government buildings will be carbon neutral by 2030. In this case, carbon neutral means that the energy used to power the building will not create any new carbon emissions. We've also targeted our top 3 buildings that consume the most energy: Town Hall, the Aquatic Center, and the Community Center. For each of these facilities, we've invested in mechanical system and lighting upgrades. To do this, we signed a contract with an energy company to achieve a guaranteed $70,000 per year in utility savings. We're happy to report that the town has actually saved over $80,000 per year in the first 3 years. Nearly all new development in Chapel Hill provides what's called an energy management plan. These project plans explain how the new construction will be energy efficient. They also include designs for the current or future installation of things like solar panels and electric vehicle charging stations. Chapel Hill Transit is a partnership between UNC and the towns of Carborough and Chapel Hill. The system currently averages close to 6.5 million rides per year. We're now investing in some electric buses to see if this technology can help us significantly reduce our carbon emissions. The town continues to invest in more bike lanes and walking paths all around the community. This is part of a town-wide plan to provide travel options that don't require a car. Remember how I talked about the importance of community action and everyone working together? Well, this is the information I was thinking about. This graphic shows that 98% of all Chapel Hill emissions come from community sources. So as a local government, we can influence a lot of what's happening, but we only make up about 2% of the pie. This chart shows how many carbon emissions the typical Chapel Hill resident uses as compared to the residents of other cities. And remember, these emissions come from activities like powering our homes, driving our cars, and putting our waste into the landfill. All of these emissions together are sometimes called a person's carbon footprint. In the case of this chart, the lower the number, the better. So as a community, we should actually feel pretty good about our carbon footprint. Compared to this list of other major cities and southeastern peers, the average Chapel Hill resident's footprint is lower. So how are we doing this? What are some of the ways that businesses and residents are already reducing their emissions? The Midtown Market on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is a great example of a property owner taking action. A few years ago, they decided to add solar to their rooftop. If you own a building in Chapel Hill with good sun exposure, have you considered installing a solar energy system? This is a picture inside the parking deck at Carolina Square near the downtown Target on Franklin Street. There are now more than 30 public charging stations around town. And it's great to have businesses investing in this technology to support their customers. This is an image of the AC Marriott Hotel in downtown Chapel Hill. It's one of our best examples of a green roof because it captures stormwater, reduces the rooftop temperature, and even creates habitat for pollinators, like bees. Is your building a good candidate for a green roof? According to Duke Energy, Chapel Hill is a community with one of the highest electric vehicle ownership rates in the state. The charging station in this picture is located at the town's aquatic center off of Homestead Road. And a little bit of a fun fact, most charging does take place in people's homes, and we've developed a permitting process that makes that a little bit easier. Of course, even better than driving an electric vehicle is something like this, taking a bike or walking. So thinking about all of this information, what kind of action can we take as a community? What's most important to us and why? In addition to thinking about reducing our emissions, how can we address things like equity and public health? We want the Climate Action Plan to answer all of these important questions, and the ones that you have. Here's my contact information. Please visit us at the link at the bottom of the screen, sustainchapelhill.org, to take the survey and help us understand your perspective. And if you know of anyone else who can help us, please share this link and encourage others to voice their opinions too. Thanks for watching. Thanks for helping. We wish you well.